Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so the meeting, Family Council, welcome to Fairhaven's Family Council. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. We are um, hosting and welcoming everyone. Um, we were located on the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh people's land and ceded lands, territories. And tonight we are featuring Seniors First BC, and this is Linda Yauk, if that pronounced.
Pretty good. Yauk.
And the topic is staying connected, preventing social isolation and loneliness, which is very timely because we have this Christmas season coming up, and it it could be a very difficult time for a lot of families um, around Christmas time. So thank you, Linda, for making the time to enlighten us on how we can be less lonely and less isolated.
And I
Okay.
am going to quickly interject just before we let Linda get started. We weren't sure if Joy Parsons, our CEO, was going to be able to join us tonight, but she is able to be here with us. And I know she was hoping to have. Do you want a couple of minutes at the beginning of the meeting, or would you like it at the end, Joy?
I'm fine to do it at the beginning so that you guys can go on with what you were planning. I'm
Okay.
having trouble getting my video working.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, I hate that. I'm just gonna try one more thing, see if I can get my video working. No, it's not working. Um,
You
so
may
I'll
want
just be
to
this.
log off and then log back on.
Well, I ah,
Technology's only good when it works.
I know,
You're almost there.
I know. Yeah, I don't know why it's not picking up my camera. I've got two cameras to choose from, and neither of them are working.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's a nice pink screen of me in the background. Can
Yeah.
everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, what I wanted to just I had a lovely conversation earlier today with Karen about some the recent media that's been in the newspaper and on the TV about some of the funding cuts that are happening in long-term care. And I just thought I would come in and just have a quick conversation with you all about this because I don't want our families to be concerned or nervous or afraid that something bad is going to happen. So I will just say a couple of things. If you haven't heard the news stories, there has been news updates that the government, the Ministry of Health, has ended additional funding that long-term care organizations like ours have received for the past number of years since COVID. So this is the government has been providing additional funding for different things, and gradually that additional funding has been pulled back. And as of October 31st, all of the additional funding ends. What that means is organizations like ours will be running deficits, so we will not have enough money to cover our costs through the end of the year. These deficits can be significant, but what I want families to know, and maybe Anne, you can share that document with families after the meeting, and we're going to put it on our website. What I want families to know is that Fairhaven is committed to ensuring we do not reduce any care hours directly related to our elders. So our elders will continue to receive the quality care that we always put forward. What Fairhaven is doing to mitigate some of these deficit areas is working very closely with our partners at the Health Authority and at the government to find different ways to fill those funding holes. We are also very strongly supported by local associations that work with us, such as BC Care Providers and the Denominational Health Association, who are also very actively advocating with the ministry to ensure we have appropriate funding moving forward. And Fairhaven as an organization, we are quite strong financially, which is a good thing. And it's in part because of our size, in part because we have different revenue streams coming in with the housing operations as well as care. So our board is confident that we are not going to negatively impact any care or service delivery. We're not laying off any staff in any care areas related to these funding shortfalls, but we will find ways to move through this challenge moving forward. Why I wanted to say that, I don't want families to be afraid when they hear funding cuts, because some of the media has been very scary, very scary. A number of our partners in care and different organizations that are smaller than us are very challenged in this financial situation. And some organizations may be very limited, but all organizations have a commitment and a requirement to deliver care a certain number of hours that the government holds us account to. So even for those very poor organizations, they will continue to deliver care, and care will not be compromised for the elders that are living in our homes. So I'll stop there, and I do apologize if my face isn't there. You can hope you can hear me, but does that raise any questions or concerns? It's kind of a lot of information if you hadn't seen the news out there yet. Yeah, just put it there.
Thank you. Thanks, Joy. I've added one of the news releases from BC Care into the chat.
Okay, thank you.
My question is, would we be, or would Fairhaven be doing like a mail out to all the families?
So it's a tricky situation, Eric, and I was having a lovely conversation today with a couple of very concerned family members as well. I want the message to go to our families that Fairhaven is working collaboratively to find a resolution through this, that our care will not be compromised, and that we are working closely with our industry partners and our advocates and the ministry to try and find a way through this. I think I will ask Anne to put that on our website, and maybe I'll put something forward. But more than anything, I don't want to. We've got good, solid communications going with the government. We're working with them collaboratively, and I don't want to rock the boat because it's a very steady ship, and I just want to be cautious with that. The most important thing I want our families to know is that care will not be compromised. We will continue to deliver our quality care.
We are here to care.
Yay! Exactly it. Thank you, Eric.
Okay, I will
Thank you,
pass the
Joy,
platform
for
to Linda.
sharing this.
Okay, thanks so much, Joy. Yeah, back up Eric here. We can let you go and get on with the rest of the evening.
Excellent. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
Take care, Joy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just gonna, am I a co-host, Karen?
Oh,
I'm-
let's see if I can do that here. Add you as a co-host.
I think,
There you go. You should be ready to go.
all right. And whoops. I'm trying a special trick on my screen here. Can you see my screen? Yep. Okay.
Yes.
There, it's good now. Nothing's cut off. Okay. Well, thanks again, everybody, and thank you, Eric. So it's a little bit unusual for me to present to a family council. So some of my stuff may or may not be 100% relevant, but it's all information. Eric said you just want to learn stuff. So, and a lot of what I have tonight is maybe not new information. It's more of a reminder, a summary about taking care of ourselves too, and then that helps us with our loved ones. I also, just to give you a little background, because I know Lynn knows me, but so I've been with Seniors First BC for about 2.5 years, and I started as a volunteer prior to that, doing some presentations. So my background, is in education, and so teaching international students about grammar and academic skills. I have a degree in social work, and I also have a certificate in gerontology. So I'm lucky I get to bring all of that together without having to do tests and homework. I also did work at a long-term care facility. That was during COVID, on the recreation therapy team. So I have some experience as well with adults and older adults with complex care needs and dementia and so on. Although I won't say I'm an expert, but I have some experience. So what I have tonight, first of all, I just want to add to Eric, your land acknowledgement that the organization I work with, Seniors First BC, we have an office downtown Vancouver, but we operate throughout BC. So we want to acknowledge the over 200 First Nations on whose ancestral territories we are operating, and to thank the people and the elders for taking care of these lands. One of the things that we're trying to do as our part towards reconciliation is reaching out to First Nations in their communities and on reserves, or Indigenous groups in various centers around BC, particularly around advanced planning. That's one of the things I'll talk about for our services. I also want to mention when we talk about things like social isolation and loneliness and staying connected, it can bring up topics that can trigger things for us, different concerns, whether it's for us or someone we know. And I'll be talking about our phone line in a moment, but just do know if you need to take a break, anything I talk about, that's fine. Check the Blue Jays score if you need to, but also know that you can contact our phone line for support. It's not a crisis line. I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but that's available for you. So for those of you who might not know about Seniors First BC, I'll just give you a quick overview about who we are and what we do. We are a nonprofit organization. We've been around for 30 years, just under different names and structures, but in that time, what we've continued to do is provide information and legal advocacy and support to older adults or people involved with an older adult, again, like I said, across BC. Our services are primarily telephone based, but with our legal services, it's possible to make an appointment and meet in person. So we have 4 main program areas, and I'll just explain a little bit about each one before we get to our main event. So if you remember one thing about Seniors First BC is our phone line. So we call it the Seniors Abuse and Information Line, or SAIL. And it's a confidential information line where our trained staff will listen to someone's questions or concerns, and then decide what would be the best place to refer. It might be to one of our programs, or it could be to supports out in the community. Underlying everything we do is the idea that we're trying to respond or prevent things from developing worse, that in regards to mistreatment, abuse, or neglect of older adults. And so if we can get people more independent or have more supports in place for them, that helps to mitigate factors related to abuse and neglect. So our phone line is also the way that you would access our internal services. We're a little bit unique because we have the phone line, plus we have what's called wraparound services. So you don't have to go somewhere else, you can come to us. Our phone line's open from Monday through Friday, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The toll-free number there is for anywhere in BC. And we offer language interpretation. So if somebody would like to speak in a language other than English, they just need to say what language when they call, and then we will connect the call to a translation service, and then we continue that way. We can also accommodate other needs, like if someone is hearing impaired, we can arrange for an interpreter for American Sign Language. Those kind of needs, it's probably best to send us an email and just explain how we can coordinate with you for an appointment. So one of our internal services is victim service support, and that's, again, telephone based. And for people 50 and over who have experienced abuse or family or sexual violence, people don't need a police file to get service from us. And our worker will help with things like ongoing safety planning. As well, can work with different people in the justice system. That's usually other victim service workers. We can help apply for the Crime Victim Assistance Program if someone's eligible for that. And our worker will also talk about what happens in the justice system, who's involved and what they do, what happens. And then similar to our phone line staff, our victim service worker, will also help people access social and community services based on their needs. That might be mental health supports or financial assistance, counseling, housing supports, and so on. Another program is public education and outreach. That's basically me. That's my job. And so my role is doing presentations to groups in the communities or to service providers, attending events where I have a info table and talk about what we do. Some of the other topics I present about are things like frauds and scams or elder abuse in more detail. We also have publications and a newsletter, and I also encourage you to check out our website for more information and links to different resources. One that I'm going to just bring up, Eric, I don't know if you're aware of this one, but last year we came out with this guide about navigating home care and senior housing. It's only available online, but we have a link on our website. And I'm just going to show my next slide here. This is just a screenshot. It's actually a Click Law wiki book, but it is in the format of a, try saying that 5 times. It is in the format of a PDF where you can actually download sections. So what it does is the guide talks about the different types of personal and health care available to older adults all across BC, both subsidized and private pay. It looks at independent living services. It looks at entering and leaving assisted living and long-term care, resolving issues in home care and seniors housing, and including assisted and long-term housing. It also looks at key laws that govern the home and residential care services. So people then can learn, what you have a right to expect and what service providers are supposed to be doing. So that's something that we just came out with last year. So it's quite comprehensive. The last program I'll mention is our legal services, and these are also free for eligible low-income older adults. And services can range from offering information and summary advice to preparing legal documents and sometimes even representation in court or residential tenancy branch hearing. So some of the areas that we can help with include, actually, I'm going to start with the stuff on the right. Housing related issues. We've all heard things around residential tenancy issues and eviction notices. So we have a legal advocate who can help people understand their rights as a tenant and looking at deadlines and so on. As well, looking at issues involving people in assisted living or long-term care, dealing with debt. So looking at options for maybe a repayment plan. Our advocate also helps a lot with accessing government benefits, income and tax credits, so everything from CPP to old age security, including if people have been turned down in their application, they can take a look. We also do a lot of work with our lawyers on advanced planning, and that's a great way to help people prevent financial abuse from occurring, is making sure they have a will and a power of attorney and a representation agreement. And again, we do those free of charge. I'll talk about the eligibility criteria in a moment. Working around concerns of financial abuse. So sometimes this might be like the misuse of a power of attorney or someone being coerced to make changes. Other aspects of elder abuse we can look at too. We're not able to help with family law or criminal law, but we can help people connect to agencies that do that. So the criteria is based on age, so 55 and up, and then the income maximum for one person is 45,000 per year and 20,000 for any additional household member. So that's based on our funding and funders and board of directors and so on. So those numbers can change. We just increased a little bit. If people have a higher income, then we can also look sometimes at exceptions on a case-by-case basis. But there's also other agencies available to help people with different level there. If people are looking for advanced planning documents, like I said, we can help with that. But we do have additional criteria based on total household assets and investments and so on. The best thing to do is to call the phone line to get more information, explain your situation, and then we can arrange a consultation. And just because I'm not sure where everybody's living, just to let you know, we do have an office downtown, like I mentioned, and that's where we can arrange to meet clients. It's not a storefront, like a drop-in. You have to make an appointment. We also partner with Community for the 2S LGBTQIA plus community. They have a location downtown. And then we have monthly clinics in Burnaby, New Westminster, and Surrey as well. So all of those, again, you still need to call the phone line for an intake and to make an appointment. If there's any questions about any of that, you can let me know. But otherwise, I'll move on to the main part here. So, like I said, it's a little different in terms of talking about loneliness and isolation and the importance of staying protected. As I mentioned, this is more of a reminder and a summary of how we can help ourselves and people around us. So exploring what we mean by loneliness and isolation. Is there a difference? Looking at risk factors that can lead to that. And then why it's important to talk about is the impacts on our health and well-being. And as I said, this is probably not going to be new information for you, but just a reminder of why it's important that we keep talking about this. And then looking at ways that we can protect ourselves. Now, Eric, I don't have all the magic answers. I don't have a magic bullet, and again, these are things for us to think about and keep in mind. And I'll also be asking you to join me in some problem or some brainstorming, I guess you could say. So if we think about what is loneliness and what is social isolation, how can we define these? What are they the same? Are they different? Does anybody want to make a comment about that? What it might mean to you?
So social isolation doesn't necessarily mean loneliness. So
Yeah, that's right. That's a really important distinction. So for our discussion, yeah, they're often related, but they are different from each other. Loneliness is more of the emotional, subjective experience, and this one's a lot harder to manage because it is subjective and it's different for each person. And that's generally, we can think about it as we have relationships, but something's missing or we would like to have more. We could think about it, we have people around, but maybe they don't understand us or we feel like they don't understand us. Whereas social isolation is more literally about not having social contact. We have a lack of it. So we maybe don't have people in our life, or we have very few or very little frequency in our contact with others. It's also important. I'm never going to say that people have to have, 100,000 friends or be involved in 500 activities every week, because we're all different. And lots of people, myself included, I'm happy with my own company. I don't always have to be out with other people, whereas other people, they really have that. But it is important to remember, we can live alone and not feel lonely or isolated, but we can also be around other people and yet feel lonely. So there's that distinction.
Linda, any statistics
In terms of,
on like how many of a population that's 55 and up that are isolated and or reported loneliness?
it's a
Even
hard
though it's
one to
subjective.
answer, isn't it? It's a hard one to answer because people who are very isolated, they're somewhat not front and center. So I would say I'm not sure about that, but here's one statistic that came out a number of years ago from Stats Canada or from the Canadian government. There's an estimate that about 30% of seniors are at risk of becoming isolated. So that's a pretty high number. That means at risk. It doesn't mean that we're going to be. And also there's a lot of risk factors, and that's what we'll take a look at here. So there's a lot of things that could be in place. And I think it's not whether you have just like one or two. The more that we have there that are a risk factor, we're more vulnerable to things happening. It doesn't mean it's for sure. Yeah, it's a good question. I wasn't able to find that specific information. I don't know if we can get an actual count of that. Even one person is too many in some respects, right? So some of the factors we'll look at here in general. Okay. Older adults, as a group, we could say are more at risk maybe for social isolation and loneliness because of changes in health and social connections. As we get older, things change, but it doesn't have to be. And we also need to remember that I have 2 pages of risk factors here. But just because you might see some for you or someone you know that are present, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen. But we also need to remember that we're individuals, and how one of these risk factors or a group of them impacts one person, it can be very different for somebody else. And that's why sometimes it's hard to come up with specific solutions. But some of the key ones here: living alone. Like, I live alone. And if something happened to me, I don't know how long it would take for my friends to realize I'm lying on the floor, for example, or if something happened. It just means that we don't have somebody right there in the vicinity to check on us and to see what's happening or what's changing for us. Age. Not everybody who's over 80 doesn't mean anything specifically, but as in general, at around the age of 80, that's when changes to our independence and our health situation often do change. And then with the health status, there's a lot of impacts. We all may be familiar. But I want to talk about one in particular about hearing loss. Because unless you yourself are experiencing hearing loss or you know someone who is, we sometimes forget that a loss of hearing can become very isolating for people when, trying to have a conversation and you're in a noisy environment, or if you have to keep asking someone to repeat themselves or to speak up, people can just kind of get tired of it and say, you know what, it's just not worth it. I'm going to stay home. And that's a step towards, withdrawing and becoming more isolated. Vision loss impacts as well are maybe some of the activities that we do, like driving, or some of the hobbies or pastimes that we enjoy, reading, even playing cards, if our vision changes in a certain way. Memory loss can lead to challenges of having conversations with people. Changes with social or family support. So again, we have, our society is very mobile. So now we have kids and grandchildren moving off to study or to live in different cities or countries even. Our friends might move away. We might move to a different place because we've downsized. So all of those things can change. Where we live can also impact things. Who are we living with? Are we living in a congregate housing? Are we living in a building? Do we still have our own house? Are we living in, the grandmother's square, the coach house? Urban and rural situations also impact our ability to connect with people or to get around. Just the fact about mobility. Now, again, I'm usually speaking to a group of, all older adults and so on. And so this often comes up. People not being able to get out of their house easily. So whether it's because maybe the sidewalks are, torn up, we've got construction everywhere. Those are challenges. How safe do people feel navigating streets and sidewalks around them? Can they physically do it with a cane or a scooter or wheelchair? Health issues can prevent people from leaving. For example, needing to have a bathroom nearby all the time might prevent people from heading out. Transportation. If you're not driving, then do you have reliable transportation? Is it close by? Is it reliable? Personal safety. So again, how safe do you feel going out, say, at nighttime in your neighborhood? Are you okay? Because those are things where people may stay inside and not go out to things. Weather. So we've got wind, we've got rain, we've got wildfire smoke, heat, cold. All of those things can prevent people from feeling comfortable about going out. Low income is certainly part of it too. We know the reality is that prices are going up and fixed incomes don't. So there's that financial insecurity. If I, want to pay my mortgage or repairs or my rent, can I go out and enjoy a movie or dinner with friends? Some other risk factors as well that can lead to social isolation are things that happen to us in life. So retirement, that's a big change for people. So maybe a lot of our social connections were with the people we worked with. And we can have nice, and sorry, Lynn, have this promise that we'll stay in touch. And we mean well, but life happens, right? And so that doesn't always happen. Losing somebody, whether it's a spouse or a partner, a close family member or friend, that person might have been a big part of our engagement with with social interactions and doing things. And if they're gone, then what happens? The loss of a driver's license is huge for people because that really changes your level of independence. It can dictate, when you go out, where you go out, how you get there. Feeling a lack of purpose. So that might go with the retirement part. But it's also sometimes as we get older, we think, okay, we've done the school, we've done the job, we've done the family. Now what? We have a lot of ageism in our society too. So people might struggle with this idea, I'm too old, I can't do that. Access to community services and programs. That goes well to where you live and what's available. Language barriers are huge as well. If you're not able to speak the same language as the people in your building or your neighborhood, that's a very isolating piece too. It's also the sense of feeling discriminated against or judged. If you were to join an activity or a group, would people accept you? Would people judge you because you're an immigrant or Indigenous, because you're older, or because of your gender identity, your sexual orientation, religion, all those kind of things? Being a caregiver. That's probably something that all of you or most of you have experience with, and that can also be very isolating when you're spending a lot of time and energy looking after somebody, and you don't have time even to have a coffee with somebody, or maybe you have to lock yourself in the bathroom to get 5 minutes. That creates a lot of isolation as well. So just to summarize this part, so there's a lot of factors that can lead to isolation among seniors. So we've looked at physical and social and environmental things that can impact who we're with and what we do. Sometimes it could be one major event. Maybe someone has a fall and they break a hip, or they've had a loss of somebody, but it can also be small events that add up. Other things that are part of the equation are what resources we have to help us with coping with changes and stresses. So these can be economic, but there's also personal ones, like how resilient are we? Who do we have around to help support us? How do we cope with change? The reality too is that sometimes many things happen kind of like a snowball effect. You have one change and then there's another and another and another, and that's overwhelming and can make it really hard to cope. And I'm really not saying anything here that we're not already aware of. I really want to stress too that some of these factors that we've talked about, we might be able to manage on our own, like in our own personal lives, but other things, like think about transportation. That's not something that you can choose to do on your own. That's like a government kind of or community-based kind of solutions are needed here too. So why do we want to talk about this? We see all these risk factors and we might be thinking, I'm doomed, but you're not, because there's ways we can work towards this. But the reason we want to have these conversations, there's a lot of talk these days, and like I think it's the United Way, they've invested a lot of money in something called social prescribing. So getting people connected with activities and with groups, because the impacts on our health and well-being are very serious when we're dealing with isolation and loneliness. So one study, so overall, there's a greater risk of early death. This is, there was a study done a few years ago, and it said that the health effects of prolonged social isolation are the same or equivalent as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And so there's a lot there where that isolation has direct and immediate effects on us. So it goes towards how our health can be neglected. We might start developing bad habits if we're isolating ourselves, if we are isolated or we're withdrawing for whatever reason, our health impacts. We might start sitting around the house, for example. We can develop bad habits. We can increase our drinking or smoking. That's also a coping mechanism, right? Can lead to poor sleep and diet. And all those things then lead to things like physical activity goes down, couch potatoes, right? So all of those bad habits, those situations can lead to more chronic conditions or exacerbating them. So diabetes, hypertension are big parts. It's not a cause or effect, but there's an association with an increased risk of dementia, as well as stroke and heart disease. So all these things, even the idea about the loss of hearing, that itself has a big connection to some of these Poor mental health, depression, anxiety, even suicide. Those are not surprises too. If somebody is not doing well, that's going to lead to those. So overall, we have that reduced quality of life and sense of well-being. The other thing I want to mention, because again, our organization is dealing with the issues of elder abuse and neglect, is that a lot of the risk factors we've identified for social isolation overlap with risk factors that can lead to elder abuse and neglect. And what happens as well is when people are more isolated, we don't have people around them who are noticing and seeing signs or indicators of potential abuse. So we don't have someone who's noticing changes in someone's behavior. There can also be, if somebody is more isolated, there is more reliance on a person maybe who's providing care or companionship. And they could be in a position, if that person is an abuser, that person is even more stuck if they're isolated. There's also, we know about scams. There's been several articles recently about older adults in particular being taken for millions of dollars to scammers. And sometimes the being more socially isolated or lonely increases our vulnerability to scammers. People could be seeking social interaction with people, whether it's in person or by phone. They just want to talk to somebody. They want someone to listen to them. And so that's another vulnerability. Decreased self-esteem and confidence can also come with that isolation. People not feeling able to reach out, not able to ask for help or even defend themselves if they're in a difficult situation. There was, they call it a meta study. So they studied a whole bunch of studies around elder abuse and neglect. So this group, Marzbani and others, so a couple of years ago, what they found overall was the lack of social, I'll just read it. The lack of social support increases the chance of physical abuse and psychological abuse. But the greatest impact is on neglect. So whether there's neglect by, someone providing care, or it's the person who's not able to care for themselves. So those are pretty serious impacts. So just some of the signals that we can be aware of. And again, some of these can also overlap, like we said, with other situations, whether it's abuse or whether it's just a person's situation. We don't want to leap to conclusions or jump to conclusions, but looking for changes in someone's behavior is the big thing. So not, for example, with mood, we all get angry sometimes, we all get frustrated, but if somebody's consistently starting to change, then that's different from how they would typically have been. Could see anger or frustration. If we're feeling alone or lonely, most of us aren't going to put up our hand and say, "Hi, I'm lonely. Could you come and visit me?" We're going to feel a little bit embarrassed, maybe, and not reach out. And so then we kind of turn it into, people don't understand me. Why isn't somebody, why doesn't somebody get this? And that can turn into that frustration. Changes in behavior. So looking at a change in activity. Somebody maybe stops going to their regular activities or meeting with people, withdrawing from conversations even. Sleep patterns. Now, this is a tricky one because we know there's a lot of reasons why people might have difficulty with sleep. Could be environmental things. I have neighbors upstairs who walk around. I don't get to sleep easily. But it can also be, physical things like having to go to the bathroom several times during the night. So there's that. But sleep patterns where maybe somebody's spending a lot more time in bed, whether they're awake or asleep, having naps all the time. So they're having difficulty with that. Changes again, showing up in appetite. So if somebody is eating a lot less, that could be an indicator of depression. The other way is if somebody's eating a lot more, that whole emotional eating business is kind of filling up that void, that sense of loneliness. We sort of mentioned this already about spending more and more time at home alone. Again, looking at a change, right? Changes in phone usage. Maybe somebody's not returning calls or messages, not making them. Or maybe it's the other. They're calling a lot or texting a lot. That could be an attention-seeking action. Changes in shopping habits. So maybe buying a lot more things that they don't really need. And again, that could be that sort of emotional retail therapy, filling up that emptiness from the loneliness. Be aware too, though, if somebody's buying, like, say, gift cards and sending them off to somebody, that's a red flag for a scam. So again, that's what I mean. It's not necessarily, but they can always be connections there. Increase in substance use. So again, feeling lonely or isolated, that can be a very painful experience. And so using alcohol or other things to help numb, so we're not feeling that pain so much. That's another change to look at. All right. So here's the ideas, not necessarily solutions. What can we do? And this is more geared to ourselves, and taking a look at others. And so one of the ideas is in preventing it is by, again, remembering to take care of ourselves. I know it might sound a little woo-foo-y, but there we are. And the other idea is coming back to the staying connected. So making sure that we can try to maintain connections with others as much as we're able to. And then the taking action, that's your homework. If you remember, I was a teacher. Okay. So if you think for a minute, a lot of us spend a lot of time looking after other people. But if you can indulge me for a minute, what are some ways that what is one small thing even that you do to take care of you? Any ideas? Any thoughts? Eric, can I pick on you?
Yes, of course. I'm glad you did. I go I go treasure hunting at Salvation Army. Yes,
Okay.
and my partner Julie loves it too.
Excellent.
Um, it's it's amazing to see what is there, and it's also therapeutic.
Okay.
Um, and it's a lot of exciting. It's a lot of exciting.
It doesn't have to be super exciting, but I mean, I think that's great. Like you're spending time, you're enjoying it. You never know what you might find as well.
Yeah, and there's always something to bring back to long-term care. So
Yes,
there's always something that's like, hey, I think, this president might like this, or
that's
this
excellent.
fits my mom.
Perfect. Anybody else have something they do?
I could share.
Sure.
I do a lot of journaling. I do like a whole routine in the morning, and I feel like it really grounds me. A little bit of meditation, and then journaling to reflect. And my dad recently have just joined Fairhaven, and
Okay.
I journal a lot about him. So, because it is him transitioning there it's transitioning for all of us then. And so trying to sort out those feelings and yeah,
I love that. That's great.
fairly new. So
No, that's good. I think journaling is a great way to, as you said, get the feelings out there, and it helps us to reflect and kind of even step back from having them in our hearts or in our head, those feelings.
that's right. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So Aileen, welcome to your father and your family
Thank
to the
you.
Fairhaven community. So the family council, if there's anything any ideas, any webinars or any topics, um, and just we're here for you.
Um,
Linda, quick
yeah.
question. Are, are the slides available?
Yes, I should. I'm sorry I didn't say that at the beginning. I will send a copy of them to Anne. Is that
Okay,
the best way to distribute, or
thank
to
you.
you? Whatever you
Yeah,
like.
that would
Yes.
be great. And then I can send it out as a link to everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Awesome.
apologies that
Thank you.
normally I say that at the outset. Yeah, for sure.
Thanks.
Um, so I'm glad, Eric, you brought up that, and Aileen, about some of your way of dealing with things. So self-care is again, it's an individual thing. Some things will make more sense to others, but the items on the left are really what are important. And this is not always easy to do, but we know the idea of having a little routine. So even if it's, get up, wash your face. Mine is get up, go to the bathroom, and make coffee. That's my first thing. But whatever it is, make your bed, check the newspaper, what have you. Having even a small routine can help us get focused and have a little bit of purpose. And even if the rest of your day doesn't go the way you hoped, you can at least look back and say, I accomplished that. It's a little bit of that. Physical activity and exercise, we know that keeping active helps us to maintain independence. and staying functioning as much as possible. It works towards that. Doing physical activity, we know increases those, what is it, endorphins. I'm not a physician, but that also helps us with regulating our emotions. That's the same thing with healthy diet as well. Food is all part of helping us stay healthy, managing if we do have, chronic health conditions and so on. All of this helps as well to promote mental acuity. Exercise doesn't mean you have to go run a marathon, but even just to walk around the block, doing chair yoga, something like that, whatever is of interest to you. Quality sleep, that's a tough one because sometimes it's really hard to do that, right? But we want to, as much as we can, is work towards that because we know good sleep is also helpful for staving off things like obesity or weight gain and depression, hypertension, things like that. Medical care. This is another one of those systemic issues that individually we can't really manage, right? If we don't have our own doctor or nurse practitioner, it's much harder to keep up with medical care. But medical care also means not just our doctor appointments, but also our eyes and our ears and our teeth. So as much as possible, keeping those up so that we stay overall healthy as much as we can.
And feet.
Sorry, go ahead.
And feet.
Yes. Oh, that's a good one, Karen. I'm going to add that to my list here. Yes, our feet are
Maybe.
important. Yes, they carry a lot. And doing things that we enjoy. One of the challenges is sometimes we, like just on a little personal note, like I had to stop doing a lot of hiking and backpacking because of my feet and issues. So I took up paddleboarding, which is less stressful than that. So continuing to adapt and try to find something that brings you pleasure and helps manage stress. That's another way. Breathing. A lot of us forget we have that always with us as an option. I know it sounds small, but can you try something, everybody, with me? I do this when I do large groups too. Can we all take 3 deep breaths? Like breathe in through the nose and hold for a minute and then out again. Can we do that 3 times? It'll help me. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. First one. And out. And another one. And last one. How do you feel? A lot of us carry stress like in our shoulders and our necks and things like that. So just remembering to breathe. It doesn't solve our problems, but it just helps us to refocus and kind of get calmer or centered. And then we can try to look at what's going on.
It makes me yawn,
Yeah. Well, yawning is good too. That tells
and
me
it's
that your brain is working.
and it's contagious.
So some of the other things like Aileen, I'm glad you brought up journaling because that's definitely not everybody wants to do that. But I think it's a really useful way to sort out emotions or even write gratitude. Some people try meditation or yoga, Tai Chi. These are all good ways to help us not only our physical, but our mental focus. Spending time in nature. I know if it's raining or windy, just put on your Gore-Tex jacket. Even to open a window and to feel, stuff on your face is helpful. There's also been, I think, I can't quote the studies, but even to have on your computer screen, if you have images of forest or water, can also kind of bring that in if you can't get outside. Okay, you're also going to tell me this is kind of woohooey. Daily affirmations or positive self-talk. I don't mean here that we have to stay positive all the time. That's bogus. We need to feel the full range of feelings. But we get a lot of negative messages from society, from ourselves and around us sometimes that if we can even put up a sticky note here and there just to remind ourselves, I am worthy. I'm a good person. I'm a good mother, wife, spouse, sister, friend, what have you. One lady at one of my talks, she said she goes in the morning into the bathroom, looks at herself in the mirror and says, I love you. And I thought that was really beautiful. May not work for everybody, but just if we can counter some of the negative messages a little bit, that would help. Sometimes when we're going through a lot, we might need to talk with somebody in a more professional capacity too. So don't discount that. We don't have to solve everything on our own or even with those around us, but sometimes talking to somebody, whether it's a counselor or maybe joining a support group on a telephone line, That's often helpful too, just to help get perspective on things and maybe get some ideas. Okay. So the final part about staying connected, this is where, again, I don't have magic answers. When I look up research for preparing this, when I first developed this presentation, it really comes back to some basic things. But do you have any ideas for yourself about staying connected with other people?
So our life changed really radically when Jim got
Yeah.
the dementia, and our whole life for like 50 years was about boating, and all our friends were boaters and all that kind of stuff. So it was a real relearning for me about what's around and what's available. And I'm very fortunate in that I have three brothers that I'm close to, but never really saw. So I've made a real effort to reconnect, and if anybody asks me to go somewhere, I go instead of saying, yeah, I can't. So yeah,
Yeah. Yes, you're describing like a huge change, right? And
yeah,
sometimes um we don't even know how to start again, right? Like it's been so long. And one thing that's different too about making connections or friendships and that when we're older is quite different from when we're like in school or starting out at work, where things just kind of magically happen. I'm glad you brought up if somebody invites you, you say yes. You don't even question that because we have to make an effort. That is part of it, and that's not easy to do,
yeah.
for sure.
I think one of the things that I've found that's really difficult is, it's hard. Like I go in and visit twice a week
Mhm.
to my chosen family, who is a long-term friend, 40 years.
Right.
Um, and one of the things that I've found challenging, and I see it with a lot of people who visit, is they don't know how to communicate, or they need to fill silences, and I I guess what I did is almost interview my friend about, what were things that he really enjoyed, and found that he really enjoyed card games when he was a young person, right? As a youth. And so now we play cards a lot, and it doesn't seem like much. I mean, we have conversations during the card games or between the card games and stuff. But I really see a big difference in his outlook, right? And so I've actually shared with a couple of people that are also visiting family members of, watching TV together, um, artwork, music, whatever it happens to turn a person on. And I find that it makes the connection a really positive one.
Mhm.
So
That's
or
wonderful.
at least I'm hoping that it really makes a difference. He seems to really enjoy it, right? Says he really enjoys it. So I don't know.
I think you brought up some really good points, Karen. Thank you very much for sharing that. I think we sometimes think that there should be this big deal and things, but I think a lot of times small actions, just your being there. It's not even about what you talk about, but you're spending time with somebody. Somebody gets heard, someone is seen. You're sharing something. And I like the idea where you did a little interview to find out, what does somebody like. Um, just again, it's not the same, but when I was working at the long-term care thing, I found a lot of times, because I didn't know people either, so I would ask them questions. But sometimes even doing something simple, yes, like watching TV and laughing about, some show from the 1970s or what have you, or listening to music, even a massage, like a hand massage, feels really good, and you've got a little sense of that physical touch. Somebody sent in a question earlier, and thank you, Anne, for forwarding that, because one of the questions was, how do you stay connected with a loved one who doesn't remember that you visited or that you telephoned? And I'm not an expert on this, but I looked up some information to kind of try to answer, and it kind of goes to what you're saying, Karen, too, is that a lot of it is meeting the person where they're at. And we have to remember that if it's things like dementia or some other health issue, um, especially with things like the dementia, that if people don't remember who you are, we have to remember it's not that person. It's the disease, right? And so taking the time, you might be a gentle reminder, like telling them your name, hi, I'm Linda, I'm your daughter, or your wife. Thinking about things like looking at photos or listening to the music. So sharing things that people liked. I think that's a good way to connect with people. Music is wonderful because what I remember from studying a little bit about cognitive decline and dementia and so on, music is like the last memory that we keep in our heads. And so that's a really awesome way to connect with people, is music that they remember. Um, One of the things with talking to people, Karen, I don't know if this is with yours, is sometimes it's helpful not to ask open questions. It's like, specific things, or talking about your day and giving them a chance to ask questions about you. It's really easy to slip into conversation, but do you remember when? And a different way would be, maybe, I remember when we went on this picnic, and seeing if giving that person time to come up with some of their ideas. So that's another thing. Any other ideas about? Because a lot of my information is more about connections for you, like outside of Fairhaven and so on too. It's about you staying connected with people and your supports as well. But because I think your situation is different from when I'm doing sort of other talks about this, I want to encourage discussion in this area too. One of the things that some of the stuff that's out there in the research is for us to take time every day to stay in touch with somebody in some way. So it could be a phone call, text message, an email. Do people still write cards or letters? Even that. And it doesn't mean reaching out to everybody that you know, but at least with somebody every day that you're connecting in some manner. This is more for just general, but some people like to have the idea of a check-in chain. So if you are part of it, even with your council, you could do this, where every day, Eric, you call Lynn, you call Karen, you call Aileen, and you say, hi, how you doing? Have a good day. Talk to you tomorrow. It doesn't have to be a big thing, or you could take time and say, oh, those Blue Jays, or whatever, or how's your mom or your husband or whatever. But it's just a way of again, making sure people are safe, and it provides a little bit of purpose and a little bit of anticipation, like, oh, hey, I get to talk to that person. It's one idea. Practicing, Lynn, when you were saying like there's a big change, sometimes we forget just small things. And, I know this happened with people I talked to, like, especially after COVID, people sort of lost their confidence in interacting with people, regardless of whatever else was going on. So we've been practicing saying hello to somebody, whether it's, the person walking their dog or their cat. I see a lot of cats walking around my neighborhood. The person at the grocery store, the barista, what have you, just saying hello and keeping that interaction. Other things, and again, this is not anything surprising, and it doesn't have to be a whole bunch of stuff, but maybe trying one thing. Like, there's lots of classes available for people, or social groups, whether it's at a community center. Colleges often have things for us that are free. Libraries have lots of talks and things like that. volunteering. Doesn't have to be all the time, but even one time or one event, it's a chance to sort of give back to people. Now, not all of you may have the time to do all of these things if you're still working, but these are other examples of ways that we can create some new connections. This is one for men. So here you are, Eric, and I think there was somebody else here. I can't see everybody on my screen right now, but there's something called a men's shed. Have you ever heard of this? Okay, so it started in Australia and it has now made its way around the world. And there's been a growing movement here in BC. Just in the Vancouver area, there's 3 locations. Oops, something's disappeared off my screen here. The West End Seniors Network, Frog Hollow Neighborhood House, Mount Pleasant. But I know there's men's sheds up in like Squamish and White Rock, Chilliwack, Langley. So they're growing. So what they are is locations where men meet in a friendly environment. They can work on projects like woodworking, maybe, but it's a time to have social interaction. Because I think men connect in a different way sometimes too. Sometimes it's not even an actual shed. It could just be meeting at a coffee shop and chatting. So if there's a man that you know, there's an option there.
Is this something like the Dudes Club?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh,
It sounds good.
yeah, I think it is. I'll send you some.
That would be great. I always look for new things, but
The Dudes
these guys,
Club is more for people who don't have much money, and you know.
it sounds like a very similar idea. I know I've met some of the guys who run different sheds, like out in I think Mission and Coquitlam, even up north, like they're all over. There's like if you go to the website, you'll see all the different sheds. But I'm intrigued. I'd love to hear more about that one, Karen. Thank you. And then let's see here. Okay, so Um, if you are still providing care or even not, I know that the Family Caregivers of BC, they have a lot of resources for people, and it is tends to be towards the caregivers. But I also want to mention the Red Cross program too, because they have something called a friendly call program, and it's free. They also look for volunteers to do this work on the line. What they do is they match up a person with a volunteer or who's trained or a Red Cross staff. And every week there's a phone call. It could be one of those little check-in ones, like 2 to 5 minutes, or it could be a longer one, like 20 minutes, even up to 60 minutes with the same person. And they try to match up things like if it's possible, they'll try to match by language. You know, if somebody speaks Cantonese, they'll try to get a Cantonese speaker, but even looking for some interests that they might share, like maybe it's gardening or sports cars or what have you. And so that's just another means of getting connected where people don't have to leave home. They can just get the phone call. And
I think
And also consider joining the family council at Fairhaven.
well, you know what? I did not put that in my slide. I think that's a brilliant thing because that's exactly what you're doing, right? With the family council. I mean, there's the goals about, you know, supporting loved ones and the whole Fairhaven, but you're also helping each other.
And having purpose.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that's
Linda, I was
fantastic.
going to just share, you know, with this. I mean, the word family has come up a couple of times. One of the things that I discovered, it was actually by accident, and help anyway, is getting contacts of the family members of the people your close friends, right? Like, what happens if somebody can't get to the phone? Well, you know, is there another way of connecting with them? And So there's a little network of us that have actually shared, our kids' phone numbers with our friends and that kind of thing, just to be able to have another way of checking in, other than the fact that the telephone. And in my case, or in the case of my friend, their telephone service went down.
Mm,
And
mm.
he had no idea that it had gone down, but that was getting pretty panicking
Yeah.
and couldn't get into his building, right? So, yeah.
It's a good point because we rely so much on our cell phones, for example. But if people aren't able to physically get to whatever phone, or if there's a power outage or what have you, I think what you brought up too, though, I like your idea of you've created this little network of people, and you can, that you have alternate ways of contacting people and checking in. Um, that's what it comes down to as well. I'd mentioned about the social prescribing idea that's out there. That's the common buzzword right now, is trying to connect people who are at risk of isolation, who are isolated, and getting them reconnected in the community. Your family council, I think, Eric, kudos to you, because as you said, you're working towards some purpose, but it's also a time of sharing. And all of you, you've got Aileen, you mentioned like you're new to the Fairhaven society. And others of you may have somebody in Fairhaven for a lot longer, and just being able to exchange information and stories and support each other that way. I think that's definitely a connection.
Uh, Jumping off where you said about stories, I
Yeah.
just added a link of, it's called the Life Story Project,
Okay.
and it Fairhaven has this where the residents, they have it's about me, like the story, what they like, education, just things about them, but it also creates conversations for visitors.
Hmm.
And I've seen what happens is when people read the life story, there's this connection that's being built, and people become curious about the resident,
Right.
and curiosity brings conversations. And it's yeah, it's awesome. Like I think, and when did we start doing that? It was like 3 months ago, I think.
No, actually, we launched it in Burnaby. It's actually my initiative. So thank you, Eric. It was my initiative I launched here a couple of years ago. But I was partnered with someone who kind of got busy doing something else. They were getting all the information, and I was actually producing the posters. So we've now put it on to Dawn to produce everything. So yeah, so it moved to Vancouver a few months ago. You're right. Yeah, we were really
There's one on Jim's ward, and it's really cool.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
So we're
I,
slowly the frames are a little bit expensive, so we're slowly doing the frames as we can find budget for it. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Eric. I think it's such a lovely way to really kind of have those conversation starters with residents, especially ones who may not be really verbal or at least you can carry on a one bit of a one-sided conversation. If you know they like the Canucks or they like the Blue Jays, then it give you those conversation starters for sure. Yeah.
That's a wonderful project. Also,
Yeah.
even just uh, the process of getting the life story from the
Hmm.
person or with the person
Yes.
is part of that process, because then they're involved, whether they're
yes.
verbal or not, they're still part of the putting it together.
Yeah.
And
And it
then
brings in family and friends to it as well. So it really becomes a nice endeavor for sure. Yeah. Lots of memories, telling stories, and yeah.
are
And it's,
photographs included as well? Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, there are. Yeah. Eric and I had fun scanning in a bunch of photos for his mom.
we have a lot of links shared tonight. Um, would we be able to kind of capture that into our minutes? And maybe send it out to our families?
I'm doing my best, Eric. I'm gonna
I
see
can't
if
seem
I
to
can.
find the export.
Yeah, I'm
Export.
trying to get that export button to work for me. So
Yeah. I also noticed it is 7:26.
Yeah.
It's
Sorry, I'm
always
over.
a good sign going over time.
Sorry about
Um, oh no, not
Oh,
not at all. Are there any last
the final
closing
thing I was
questions?
just going to mention is about here's the homework is continuing to do what you're doing with the family council. So checking in with people, your own social connections, um, uh, with each other, paying attention if there are changes in someone's behavior to reach out and encourage them. And then above all, like maintaining your own self-care and connection so that you can stay connected with others. Um, and if there are concerns that you want to discuss with somebody, our phone line is available as well. So that's there. So I'm going to stop my sharing there and I can see everybody now.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you.
yes, thank you.